Good to see you.
Oh. Hello? Can you hear me?
All right.
All right. Well, I want to say firstly, good morning.
Good morning.
And I thank everyone for coming this morning. My name is Rashida Lawrence. I am the PTA president at PS 307, a strong kindergartner in Brooklyn. And as a PTA president and a New Yorker, I believe in equity for all of our students. I want to ensure that every child can attend a school like PS 307, which has a range of resources and programs like pre-K, Mandarin, and other vital resources that all children should have access to. Fortunately, we have a chancellor and a mayor that are focused on equity and a system that is in place to deliver this for our parents and our students. Because of our chancellor and our mayor, there is a pre-K seat for every child, for every family who wants one. There's a record investment in arts programs, dual language programs, bilingual programs all across the city, opening right now. None of this would have been possible without the work of mayoral control. Mayoral control, I believe, creates clear lines of accountability. This makes it easier for our families to contact and reach these types of vital resources. But I must say, there's a lot of work to do. We still want diverse classrooms. We want culturally responsive curriculums. And we want to get rid of bias in our schools. The mayor and the chancellor have been investing in all these areas across the city. And once again, I must stress, this could not be accomplished without mayoral control. To help our students, our children, 1.1 million of our children in this city. Oh, this morning is such an important morning for all our parents and our families of this city. These initiatives and investments were not simply created out of thin air. They were created in response to parents like me, a PTA president whose job is to advocate and empower other parents for the resources and needs of our families and our children. And as much as I would like to say, we can continue to do better. There's a clear focus in this administration on family empowerment rather than engagement. There's a clear commitment to equity. Parents and communities that were historically neglected now know that they are telling the mayor and the chancellor loud and clear what they need. I thank you, Mayor. I thank you, Chancellor, on the behalf of all the children of the city, for listening to us and strengthening those ties with families. And I want to take a moment to thank every parent who advocates for their child's education. I want you to feel empowered. I want you to feel heard and understand that your impact is relevant and touches the lives not only of our future leaders and generations, but also adults we can still continue to push forward. Thank you. Keep up the good work. And without further ado, it is my humble honor to introduce you to our mayor, de Blasio.
I want to go to a PTA meeting at PS 307 because just to hear Rashida's oratory, I am impressed. And I appreciate your passion. I appreciate how much you see change happening and how much you believe more change can and will happen. And that is what this is all about, the ability to make big changes for our children. Let's thank Rashida for all she does. Okay, I want to thank everyone who's here, everyone from the clergy community, the business community, the labor community, people who care deeply about the future of our schools, the future of our kids, the future of our city. So I want to thank you all, but now we're going to go to the classroom together, and we're going to do a quick quiz. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, 3 questions. Are our students succeeding like never before?
Yes.
Are our schools getting better and fairer?
Yes.
Can we afford to stop the progress we're making?
No.
You have passed the exam. To everyone here, I want to thank you for standing up for our children and standing up for the changes we are making and the greater changes ahead. I want to thank all of the leaders and the parent leaders as well, who make a difference every day in our schools. The empowerment of parents, as Rashida said, is about speeding the changes we need. The Chancellor and I believe in this fundamentally. We need to deepen the role of parents because it will be the #1 way that we make sure accountability reaches all the way down to the grassroots and that things keep moving forward. The way you know if something's working is to talk to the people who are at the front line. They are the best allies and the best change agents and the best agents of accountability. And by the way, PTAs do that at the school level. We need parents all over the city to help us make these changes. So thank you. Give your neighbor a round of applause, everybody. Thank you to everyone who's here from my administration. A special thank you to my senior advisor for minority and women business enterprises, Janelle Doris. Thank you for your leadership. And a special thank you, a dear, dear friend is here. And he is one of the real experts on this topic because once upon a time, he was president of the New York City Board of Education under the previous structure. And he saw how desperately we needed change. Now he's one of the strongest voices for mayoral control. Let's thank Steve Aiello. Thank you so much, Steve. So I want to remind people when I ran for mayor, I had a distinction as being the first mayor, certainly in memory, to serve as mayor while having a child in the public schools. And I ran for mayor as someone who had been a school board member, ran for mayor as someone who had been active in the PTA. And I understood that we needed to change things and we needed to change them fast. I saw firsthand what the old system was like. I saw all the ways it let down children. I saw all the chaos. I saw in too many cases the corruption as well. We could never go back to those days. And I have said many times, it doesn't matter if Mayor Bloomberg and I agreed on everything or not. When it comes to mayoral control, it's one of his greatest achievements to get that passed in Albany. And we have all been benefiting since then. The graduation rate, the day that mayoral control was passed in Albany originally, about over 15 years ago, graduation rate at that point hovered around 50%, an absolutely unacceptable figure for the largest school system in the country. Today, we have a graduation rate of 76% and growing every year. And mark my words, the national average is 84% now. We will, in the coming years, surpass the national average for graduation rate in the biggest, greatest school system in the country. Yes. Mayoral control has allowed for big changes to happen fast. Pre-K for all. We went from 20,000 kids in full-day pre-K to 70,000 kids in 2 years' time because of mayoral control. This coming September, there will be 20,000 children in 3K, something that did not exist a few years ago. There will be 20,000 3-year-olds getting a full-day quality education this coming September because of mayoral control. We announced, and for Richard and I, this was a moment of great pride, we announced that 55,000 of our students took AP courses this last year because of mayoral control. We're focused on universal literacy and getting kids on grade level, reading on grade level by 3rd grade. We're focused on getting computer science to every child. Yes. Every child. That's right. This is what mayoral control allows. Now, some people have said to me, and I think it's a fair point, is there another phrase that gets across the same point? One of my good friends, former colleagues, Robert Jackson, former council member, now state senator, a great hero of the campaign for fiscal equity. He says he likes the phrase mayoral accountability. I like that phrase too. I like that phrase too, because when a New Yorker comes up to me, and I was just on the subway, and you may know New Yorkers have strong opinions, when a New Yorker comes up to me and they want to talk about PS 307 or whatever school it is, I'm accountable. It's literally my job to make sure they get an answer and their issues are heard. The chancellor gets 250 emails a day and makes sure that people get answers. We had a town hall meeting with parent leaders in Staten Island just 2 nights ago. And they raised the biggest concerns and they raised the most specific concerns. And we are acting on those concerns because someone's actually in charge. Someone's held accountable. So we are proud of how far we have gone. But we know there's so much more we can achieve. You know, last year, 59% of the kids who left our high schools went on immediately to higher education, the all-time highest number. But that number needs to go up a lot more, and we know it can. We have proven there can be progress. And to me, there is nothing more humbling than being responsible for 1.1 million children and their future. But it is, to me, a call to arms every day to get it right, to make sure we continue to make this school system better, to make sure we serve these kids and their parents better. If we're going to achieve our goal, being the fairest big city in America, nothing's more important than making our schools the best they can be. And with mayoral control, that can be a reality. I want to say a quick few words in Spanish before I turn to some of our other wonderful guests here. Los neoyorquinos lo saben. El control de la alcaldía es esencial para una educación de calidad. El progreso de nuestros estudiantes, los resultados de los exámenes y el aumento de las tasas de graduación lo demuestran. Hemos avanzado demasiado para dar vuelta atrás. With that, a man who, I don't know how he does it. I have never seen a day when he wasn't energetic. I have never seen a day when he wasn't positive. He seems to me to be someone who really believes that change can come, and he's making it happen every day for our students. Our Chancellor, Richard Carranza. Here we go.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Buenos dias. Buenos dias. I want to thank everyone who is here today, everyone sitting up front. You will all be introduced in a minute, but Mr. Mayor, with your permission, I do want to recognize someone who I was brought up to say you always recognize those who came before you, and we're building on the legacy of his great work, and I want to thank Chancellor Walcott for being here. Thank you for your leadership, sir. This is a great morning for us, and I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for pointing out some of the many wonderful things that have happened under mayoral accountability, mayoral control, mayoral influence, mayoral vision. A couple of more things.
I like this.
That's what we do. That progress that you shared all of the for-alls, the AP for all, the grad rates, the attendance is getting better, our academic press is better, all of the things that you talked about, including very, very, very aggressively pursuing that national average and surpassing the national average on graduation rates. All of those things are pretty remarkable. But I want to remind everyone here today that behind all of those numbers are real people. They are students, they're young people from the South Bronx to South Shore and everywhere in between who inarguably have a brighter path ahead of them because of the steps the city has taken to get them there. Now I want to be very clear about that. It's not the chancellor, it's not the Department of Education, it is the city of New York that has taken those steps to get them there. And when the citizens of New York City come together every 4 years to elect a leader, it is without question that they are also electing a leader who has a vision for the education of the 1.1 million children in our city. The very future of New York City is sitting in our classrooms right now. So when you think about mayoral accountability or mayoral control or mayoral vision, what you're talking about is the very future of New York City. So the question is very simple, but not simplistic. How can we afford not to have mayoral control in the largest, most diverse city in America, I would argue in the world, to have that kind of leadership? Now look, before I came to New York City almost a year ago, 11 months, but who's counting? I taught in schools and led school systems in 4 different school systems, all of them urban school districts, and in 4 states. This is now the 5th school system in the 5th state that I've lived and worked in. In each of those school systems, all of them much smaller than New York City, nobody's bigger or better than New York City, let's just be clear. We did everything that we could to advance equity and excellence. We thought we left it on the field. But you see, we could only do so much because too often we lacked a clear accountability to produce results. Too often there wasn't a clear political consensus to produce results. The vision and the systems and structures to produce results just weren't there. And they were clouded by oftentimes the politics of those who wanted certain things and not always wanted the things that were the most effective for students. So one of the main reasons I was excited about coming to New York City is when I had the opportunity to sit with Mayor de Blasio. And one of the main reasons I came to New York City after that conversation and getting the opportunity to talk shop with the mayor of New York City around education and education policy and education vision. And one of the reasons I came to New York City and I'm so excited about New York City is mayoral control. The understanding that the decision maker in our city, the visionary for our city, the person that has been democratically elected to lead our city into the future has not as a priority but as a fundamental plank of the city's platform, education and equity for all. Equity and excellence for all is extremely provocative and is one of the reasons I came. It's become one of the pillars of our administration. And because with mayoral control becomes accountability, innovation, and results, we are positioned to continue to move the system forward. The ability to think big and put policies in place that turn ideas, many times very good ideas, but turn those ideas into action and results, very humbly I can say only comes from the ability to have mayoral accountability, mayoral control. Parents like Rashida, by the way, you're a great speaker, who with her fellow PS 307 families knew what was needed, knew who to go to in order to get it, and knew who to hold accountable to see it through. Mayoral control means our systems and structures are aligned so that we are working all towards the same vision. And it means that everyone in the Department of Education, from myself to our educators, our students, our families, all of our support staff, everyone that touches the life of a child, are working together from the same playbook. From the same playbook to execute on that vision. That was only and the only way to add a whole new grade, pre-K, that the mayor has spoken about. And because I've lived from the West Coast now to the East Coast and in between, I can tell you there is no other large urban city in America that has universal pre-K, quality universal pre-K like we have in New York City. And where people would have said that's not possible, we've proven that it is not only possible, it is actually doable, and doable in a time frame that many would have said could not be done. That's why we're on track to do it again with 3K right now. And it's the only way to bring 70,000 seventh graders on a college visit, to bring algebra to every middle school citywide, to implement advanced placement courses and raise expectations for every high school student in our city. It's the only way to provide anti-bias training to every single New York City public school teacher and educator. It is a structure that we need to fully deliver on our vision of equity and excellence for all. Not for some, not for those that have had it, not for those that could have had it, for all. So please don't underestimate the power of that vision. As a student, an educator, and now as a chancellor, I've seen and experienced at every juncture how public education can be transformative and change lives. That is why equity and excellence is about building a future for each of our children. It's not bound by history, but it's not bound by demographics. It's not bound by income, but it's really fundamentally about who we believe we are in New York City. We believe we can unleash our students' innate brilliance and unlock their creativity and put them on a path to their dreams, no matter the zip code. And the proof is there. Look at the results. Together, we're delivering the results, and mayoral control is working. So we owe it to our students, our families, to continue to work as hard as we can every day with a clear agenda driven by our belief that every student deserves the opportunity to live up to their full potential, and mayoral control is how we get that done. Are you with us?
Yes.
Are you with us?
Yes.
Then let me just say that in Spanish. Tenemos la oportunidad de continuar en el camino hacia el éxito que tenemos con la contabilidad de nuestro alcalde, en un sistema tan grande, tan diverso como es el nuestro, en una ciudad tan diversa como es la nuestra. Tenemos la oportunidad de seguir en ese camino hacia el éxito, y ese camino está fundado y es parte del plan que nuestro alcalde tiene para nuestra ciudad. Entonces yo, como el canciller de las escuelas públicas aquí en Nueva York, estoy orgullosamente apoyando que siga en control nuestro alcalde y que este sistema de gobernación en nuestra ciudad siga adelante. With that, I say thank you. Let's get mayoral control done now. We need it. We appreciate it. But more importantly, our children are depending on it. Thank you so much.
Sí, señor.
Like the adelante. You're going to hear from some leaders who represent so much of this city. And, you know, I want to tell you, 8.6 million of us, strong opinions, often divergent opinions. But when you look at the list here, all the business leaders who signed this letter in favor of mayoral control, leaders of some of the most important businesses in New York City. When you look at the list of labor leaders who signed this letter, and we're going to make sure you all get these, and a lot of them were up in Albany talking to legislators about how important it was. These are labor leaders who represent millions of New Yorkers speaking up, talking about how important it was to continue mayoral control for the good of our city. When you look at the list of clergy leaders, people who are looked to as the great consciences of our city, who signed a letter in favor of mayoral control, this is one of those situations where you see extraordinary consensus among the people who lead this city in so many ways. And that's why we know this is the right path, and this is something we need to get done now. And I want to bring forward now one of the great voices of our business community, and I've worked with her for many, many years, and she not only speaks up for the interests of our local economy and the concerns of business, she's been a leader in the creation of affordable housing. She's been a leader in the effort to constantly improve our schools. She's been a leader in the fight to achieve and sustain mayoral control because she understands, I think, one of the great voices in this town, she understands what accountability means for our kids. My pleasure to introduce the President and CEO of the Partnership for New York City, Kathy
Thank you, Mayor. We sent this morning a letter to the governor and the legislative leaders on behalf of the business leadership of the city, more than 100 major CEOs and, more importantly, major employers in this city that represent over 1 million jobs. And we are urging the extension of mayoral control. The governance system under mayoral control, the accountability and the vision, the continuity of vision, has been something that has convinced the business leaders of this city that they can once again have confidence in the New York City schools and in the students who are the products and the graduates of the New York City schools. I can't tell you how important this is. Prior to that, as Steve Aiello knows well, and Dennis, many of us who have been around, Reverend Daughtry. Oh, there are a few of us that have been around. These days, everybody's younger than me. But we understood the petty politics that drove education and distracted from the primary mission of caring for children. And that really discouraged employers from what they could expect from the school system. That has fundamentally changed since 2002 under both Mayor de Blasio and Mayor Bloomberg, and that's really important. We've seen real continuity of vision, continuity of leadership, and as a result, you're seeing the performance statistics that the mayor alluded to, and there are many more that show we are going the right direction. Unfortunately, the politics have not disappeared from Albany. And we all know that. We still have been getting these short-term extensions of mayoral control. And one thing I want to say is, from the business community standpoint, this should be permanent. We should certainly be getting multi-year extensions. The governor has put a 3-year extension in his budget. We have to take the politics out of education. It's too important to all of us. And so this year, the fight is let's get multi-year extension, hopefully permanent extension of mayoral control, and so we can know where we're going. We can go forward without worrying about any distractions. And we congratulate the mayor on his vision, the continuity of his vision, and we want a structure that supports that. So thank you.
Thank you. Permanent. I like it. I like it. Next, I wanted to hear from truly one of the great clergy leaders of this city and of this nation. I'm not going to give away his age, but I can say for half a century, he has been a leader in movements for social change and for equity. And there's many things I love about Herb Daughtry, many, many things. But one of the things that I truly appreciate, he has a passion for early childhood education. Long before it became fashionable, he was one of the visionaries saying this was going to be a difference maker. If we wanted equity, we needed early childhood education to reach everyone. And I know it's because of your advocacy for many, many years. You're one of the people who helped set the stage for what we've been able to do with universal pre-K. My pleasure to introduce the National Presiding Minister of the House of the Lord Churches, Reverend Herbert Daughtry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to the Chancellor and to the distinguished speakers all and all the representatives from the community. Allow this old man, I'll tell my age because it was considered by many I wouldn't get out of my teens. So I did a little better. I'm only 88.
Whoa. Whoa.
I'm still good, Mr.
Sign him up.
Yeah, especially the Nets
that's right.
and the Knicks.
We're gonna get you right in there.
Allow this old man then to take you down the corridors of history for a moment. This is dreamy, nightmarish stuff for me. I graduated from junior high school 178 in 1945. And of course nobody even considered college. You went to automotive trade or needle trade or mortician. But I didn't go to any because the principal considered me a great athlete, and so I got a medal. Here is the man who made the impossible possible and gave me a medal. and obviously I didn't know anything but how to play ball, and so I dropped out. But across the years, as the mayor has indicated, the family has been very, very much involved in education. I was there in 65, when the Reverend Milton Galamison led the biggest school strike in the history of New York City. And I was there when Ocean Hill, Brownsville was created with Rhodey McCoy and Reverend Herb Oliver. And I was a part of a clergy group. We called ourselves Clergy Vigil. And we were going to impose a moral guardianship on the school system. Well, here we are. What is it, 55 years later? So 55 years since Milton Galamison. What is it, 65 years, I think, from the Board of Ed? Do I have my arithmetic correct? Here we are. By the way, the family, we in daycare have been almost from the beginning. We have accredited daycare center. I have a daughter who is a principal, son who was a lawyer, decided to become a principal in New York City until they hired him away in another large city to become assistant superintendent of schools. Another daughter who worked in the school system and came out and now works directly with me in the things that we do. So this battle for education has been long with us and very much a part of our history. Let me echo what has already been said. I heard former Mayor Dave Dinkins say, I was at a meeting with elected officials and everybody was speaking, and this person got up and said, well, everything on this subject has been said. And the only problem is I haven't said it. So let me say it with all the emphasis I can command. At last we have a mayor who talked the talk as well as walked the walk. Great promises have been made heretofore, but we have a mayor who has put at the top of his agenda striving to address equity in our school system in communities, many of which you know have been underserved for generations. Since taking office, the mayor has taken unprecedented steps to improve the school system through bold and successful initiatives, including, well, as we've been saying, universal pre-K and 3K, free after-school programs for all school students, AP classes for all, free set, SAT, to name a few. And the result speaks for itself. About 70,000 kids, free, full daycare, high quality pre-K annually, and 3K, the number of students that than before the expansion. Highest ever graduation rate, we've heard it, what is it, 76% I think now. Lowest ever dropout rate, highest ever college enrollment and readiness rates, improving math and English language test scores, more students than ever before taking SAT tests, and much more historic level of success. But none of this, no, not one, none of this would have been possible without having mayoral control of the New York City school system. Unfortunately, mayoral control expires this year, which could stifle the tremendous progress we made. And so, as a leader who represent institutions of faith that advocate for communities in every corner of New York City, we support, yes, We support 3-year extension of mayoral control in Albany that will continue the successful momentum Mayor de Blasio has helped to create. God bless you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you so much, Reverend. I want to say the support of our elected officials has been so important, and I want to thank and acknowledge Councilmember Ben Kalos for being with us. Thank you for your leadership. Now, someone who knows a lot about this topic, because he was one of the people who helped to usher in mayoral control education and to prove that our school system could start moving quickly, could start moving forward on graduation rate, could start to heal some of the mistakes and wounds of the past, could start to actually move forward in ways that had been previously unimagined. And I want to give credit where credit is due, that Dennis Walcott is one of the people who gave us the platform that we were able to work from to get us to where we are today. So my pleasure to introduce former Chancellor Dennis Walcott.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much, and good morning to all of you. Chancellor?
You got Deputy Chancellor.
Deputy Chancellor. I see the Deputy. Oh, okay. And to the Chancellor who had to run, but the Chancellor, to the Deputy Chancellor, to Kathy, to the Reverend, to all of our leaders back there, but most importantly to our 1.1 million children. June of 2002 was an important day in New York City history. Plain and simple. June 2002. That was the month and the year legislation was signed granting the mayor control. Mayor Bloomberg had a dream and a vision, and we worked on behalf of that dream and vision with the mayor, with Kathy, with the community leaders, with our union leaders, our parents, our teachers, to bring mayoral control to New York City. And it's the best thing that's ever happened to education in the history of New York City education. If you do a graph and take a look at the chart as the mayor indicated, prior to mayoral control, graduation rates had flatlined, 49, 50%, 50%, 49%. And that was the expectation of graduation rate for our students. Unacceptable. And as a result of mayoral control, mayoral accountability, mayoral responsibility, mayoral performance, those numbers changed. Graduation rates, as the mayor indicated, started to go up. Equally as important, as the Reverend indicated, dropout rates started to go down. More programs were put in place, more CTE schools came into existence. Under this mayor, universal pre-K, AP numbers are going up, and you've heard it over and over and over again. And when we had a dream back in 2002, the dream wasn't relegated to having it as Mayor Bloomberg's dream. It was for the dream of the children of New York City to outlive Mayor Bloomberg, to outlive Mayor de Blasio, to carry forward for future mayors and future chancellors to benefit our children and our parents. And that's what this is all about. So when we talk about an extension, I had the luxury back then as deputy mayor and as chancellor under Mayor Bloomberg to have school governance for more than 3 years. And quite frankly, I want the same thing for Mayor de Blasio. It should be more than 3 years. You shouldn't always have to look over your shoulder to wonder, okay, will something happen where I get caught in this thing and they say, well, 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. That's not fair to the children. That's just politics. This isn't about politics. This is about our 1.1 million students and making sure they have a quality, high quality education for their future growth and success. Plain and simple. That's what this is about. So, Mr. Mayor, I am always here for you around this particular issue. You know that. And I will always be here around school governance. School governance, school accountability, school performance, school responsibility benefits our children. All you have to do is look at the results. All you have to do is look at the programs. All you have to do is look at the services. But more importantly, when you're upset about an issue, because I've lived it all. I was a member of the Board of Education under both Mayor Dinkins and briefly under Mayor Giuliani. I was a trustee that took over a school board in Central Harlem, appointed by Chancellor Rudy Crew back then. So I've seen it from various angles, and this angle is the best angle. This angle is about performance. It's about accountability. It's about respect. But more importantly, it's making sure that our children are able to grow to be successful, self-sufficient adults. That's all it is. That's what it's about. So, Mr. Mayor, you have my pledge always for support in making sure whatever is necessary around school governance, we are here for you to make sure we advance that, and thank you for your leadership around this issue. Most important.
Thank you very much. One of the elected officials who's been saying for years and years that we needed to focus on giving our kids the technology skills they deserve is Borough President Gail Brewer. And she has seen firsthand what it means to have a system that can respond to a demand and act on it. I know she had the vision that now is one of the cornerstones of our approach, computer science for all. So I want to bring forward Borough President Gail Brewer.
Thank you very much, Mayor de Blasio, and I want you to know that Dennis Walcott and I are the same age, same year, same second, same day, so he looks a lot better than I do, and he's always right. So thank you very much, Dennis Walcott. Mayoral control is a proven system. I believe in accountability, but first I want mayoral control for a very long time. It works a lot better than the old school board system, and I know that for a fact. Before June 2002, I was elected to the city council. And I remember, this person has passed on, so I won't give her name, but I know she said to me, Gail, the way you work, this is in the old system with the Department of Education or the Board of Education at that time, is you lie. I said, wrong message, wrong person. But that, unfortunately, was often a challenge, along with the corruption, with some of the boards that were in charge of the schools, and then you had no idea to who you could be, who was accountable. So this movement towards mayoral control, it came from a need for more accountability in the education system, and that has happened. Officials, teachers, and parents who were involved in the school system in the 80s and even in the 90s will remember how chaotic school boards were. You have no idea. It was impossible to hold anyone accountable because board members hid behind group decisions and they were not transparent and you had no idea what was going on. Patronage was rampant. Mayoral control works because the public can hold the mayor accountable for the school system. And I have to say, in my situation between the great work of the chancellor and the deputy chancellor, the people who are appointed, for instance, the head of all the superintendents in the borough of Manhattan is terrific, and you know that she's accountable, and there's a chain, and you have a chart that shows exactly who is accountable to whom. Let me give an example. Last year, when Wadley Secondary School was facing a truncation of its middle school grades, we worked as a community in Harlem and other elected officials throughout Manhattan to secure a meeting with the mayor and make the case for keeping the school open. That led to the prevention of that truncation, but it showed an example of how mayoral control and accountability works. Accountability is just one benefit. Since the mayor has authority over city agencies, the mayor can more readily create systems to support students than school boards ever could. It didn't happen under school boards. You had no idea. Everybody was in a silo. The mayor has authority and access to foster collaboration between NYPD, which has happened, Department of Mental Health and Health, which has happened, and of course the Department of Education and many other agencies to improve how young people in crises, and there are many, are served and treated in this city. I just want to add, we need more social workers in the school. We need a social worker in every single school. I'm just going to throw that out as an example. Now, mayoral control is not the end-all, be-all. There's a lot of work to be done. Community Education Councils, CECs, however, are an improved version of the school boards. Oh, my God, are they better. Parents on the CECs are fierce advocates for their schools and heavily involved in decisions about their schools, and they take this job very seriously. And they're accountable to the parents, and in my case, to the borough president, because we appoint a couple of them, but they know that the buck stops with the mayor. So when the issue comes up that needs a final say from someone, we can depend on having the mayor make that decision. The decisions have been good, and we want mayoral control for a very long time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we've got 3 more speakers. First, on the crucial issue of ensuring that our school system respects all kids of all backgrounds, responds to their needs, responds to the need to teach kids in multiple languages, which is a great blessing in this city. A leader in the community as co-executive director of the Coalition for Asian American Children and Families, Anita Gundana.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under the leadership of Mayor Bill de Blasio, the city's public schools are growing stronger, and the city is increasingly working with advocates to ensure that all students are on a path to success. A shared vision of educational equity is necessary to move the system forward. CACF, the Coalition for Asian American Children and Families, is working with the Department of Education to ensure that all voices, including those of the very diverse Asian Pacific American community, and especially those most marginalized, are heard. And we believe that there is much potential for progress to be made to ensure that our children are not only successful academically, but also supported in their social-emotional growth as lifelong learners. We believe that transparency and community engagement are critical components of mayoral control. Clear communication lines must exist from community education councils to the panel for educational policy and on district-level decisions that need to be made. We would like to see more public briefings on progress with multi-language learners, special education, graduation rates, school climate, and the progress of restorative practices in our schools, as well as culturally responsive curriculum. The mayor and chancellor have made strides to begin listening to the needs of Asian Pacific American children and families. CACF is committed to working with the DOE to better engage APA families and to move school communities forward. We support mayoral control of the city's public schools because improvements to public education for all children would not be possible without a clear leadership structure, along with the ability to marshal resources, make tough but necessary decisions, and remain accountable to those decisions. CACF looks forward to working closely with the DOE in continuing to improve schools for all New York City public school students, including the Asian Pacific American and immigrant children and families across New York City. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We've got a lot of great labor representatives here and activists, and I want to call forward 2 of the labor leaders who are with us, and I want to thank all of the unions that are here. I know Unite Here is here. I know 32BJ is here, RWDSU is here, all of the unions who are here and all the leaders who signed on to the letter. It makes a huge difference in this discussion. And my pleasure now to introduce someone who is a great voice of working New Yorkers and understands that they and their families need the highest quality public education, the president of Unite Here Local 100, Bill Granfield.
Thank you, Mayor. Good to see you. Good morning. So we're the other Local 100, the food service workers, and we first came to support the mayor back when he was on the city council and the public advocate on worker issues like paid sick days. Yep. We stayed around with him when we learned about his approach to education. And with universal pre-K, which directly impacts thousands of our members in the city, the universal pre-K, and now, of course, the 3K, the next step. But that's just the start of our public education system. What about down towards the finish line? And, you know, More and more kids are scoring higher on the state scores, right? We've heard about that. The advanced placement, more kids in the advanced placement programs, more kids passing those tests, right? The graduation numbers, we've heard about them, and on to college after that, right? Graduation on to college, right? The only thing that's going down, the Reverend mentioned, is the dropout rate. That's the one thing that's trending down, and that's favorable. In the union, we have a thing to say about numbers, because we've heard a lot of numbers, right? The numbers don't tell the whole story, but the numbers never lie, right? So the public schools are improving in New York City, and we have a system, which I thought was mayoral control, but maybe it's mayoral accountability. We need to continue that system for as long as possible. If it's 3 years, we'll go with that for now, but as long as possible, mayoral control.
Amen. Thank you, Bill. Thank you very much. Finally, someone who knows a lot because as Vice President of 32 BJ SEIU, she oversees the schools division for the New York metropolitan area. So she knows frontline work being done every day to make our schools work, and I want to thank her and all the members that she represents who do that important work. The Vice President of 32 BJ, Shirley Aldabal.
Thank you, Mayor de Blasio. So, as Mayor de Blasio said, we represent building service workers, about 80,000 building service workers who not only work in New York City, but they live in all 5 boroughs of New York City. And many of them have children who go to school in our New York City public schools, including myself, who has a middle schooler. I'm going to make a shout out to District 8 in the Bronx. But this is an issue that's very important for our members because, as I said, we fight for equality, we fight for equity for our union members, not just in their workplaces, but also we fight for their families in their communities. Having mayoral control, we know firsthand, gives everyone opportunities that they otherwise wouldn't have in our education system. We also know firsthand, because we represent nearly 6,000 schools, cleaners, and handy persons, we understand how mayoral control has helped the workers who work to clean our schools and maintain our schools and keep them healthy and safe for our 1.1 million children every day. And it was because of mayoral control and because of this mayor that we were able to eliminate a 2-tier system of pay and benefits for the workers of our New York City public schools. Without mayoral control, we would still be suffering a disparity in pay and inequality that was, quite frankly, unacceptable for many years. And under the universal pre-K program that was created by this mayor, it has been a boon for all New York City families. That is why we urge state leaders to extend mayoral control of our city schools and the best education system for our 1.1 million children. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's take questions on the mayoral control issue. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, so there's state lawmakers have talked about, it doesn't seem like there's an appetite to get rid of mayoral control, but there has been a lot of conversation about changing some of the governance structures, so maybe giving some of your appointments on the PEP to somebody else, and sort of, you know, increasing that accountability factor. And I know Senator Jackson actually has gone on the record to suggest that he would support something like that, and so is Senator John Liu. So I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Sure.
What do you think about that?
So I've been speaking regularly to the 2 legislative leaders, Speaker Hastie and Leader Stuart Cousins. I've been speaking to Robert Jackson. I've been speaking to John Liu and a number of members. I think your first statement is right. There's a broad view that mayoral control is working and should be extended. There's also concern to make sure that the voices of parents are heard more consistently, more effectively. And we are working with our legislators in Albany to determine how we can address that. But I've also said it has to be done in a way that maintains the integrity of mayoral control. If there's not a mayoral majority on the PEP, you don't have mayoral control. There has to be the ability to make the decisions and implement them quickly while still having real checks and balances, which the PEP unquestionably provides right now. So I believe the conversation has been very constructive. We're all looking for a way to continue what's working and amplify the voices of parents, but we have to do it in a way that protects the core meaning of mayoral control. Yes?
So the letter by the labor leaders in support of mayoral control, I noticed that the UFT and 1199 SEIU weren't among the unions supporting, or at least in that letter.
Well, the UFT president, Michael Mulgrew, testified in Albany a week or two ago and very clearly spoke up on behalf of his union for mayoral control of education. And he said specifically that some of the major changes that you've seen, pre-K, 3K, the changes in improving professional development for teachers, the changes we made recently to ensure that we could get teachers to some of the harder to staff schools. He said very clearly publicly that only happened because of mayoral control. We can ask 1199 SEIU. I think they've historically been very supportive. The letter was obviously a group of labor leaders. It's not everyone who supports it. But generally, we've seen outstanding support from the labor community. On mayoral control, yes.
So Governor Cuomo's proposed a 3-year extension. Obviously, you've been speaking with the legislative leaders, but is there any indication that this might not happen? And is 3 years enough? Or are you seeking more than 3 years?
Look, I think 3 years is fair. I agree that the system's proven itself. I want to pick up on Dennis's point. This system has proven itself now for over a decade and a half. Every year we see improvement. At a certain point, I think we have to say, you know, how much proof do you need before you recognize that something is working and should be made permanent? But for this moment in history, we have a new state senate. I think there's a growing consensus that 3 years is fair, and I certainly know that would allow us to do the work that we have to do. On mayoral control, want to see if there's anything else, or on education while we're at it. Go ahead.
The president of the UFT, Mike Mulgrew, told the Post in an interview, quote, our current disciplinary system is broken. It doesn't work for students or staff. This comes after a string of stories about teachers losing control of classrooms and not thinking they have sufficient disciplinary tools to deal with problems with students. What do you make of Mike's comments?
I haven't seen those comments, so I want to make sure I take them in context and see the whole picture. Look, you just look at the statistics. I think they have been very clear and consistent. A lot of the problems we experienced in the past have been reduced greatly in our schools. Crime has gone down, violence has gone down, our schools are safer than ever before. But we had to address the overuse of suspensions. We had to address the discriminatory use of suspensions. We had to address the fact that we had previously lacked restorative justice options that now were rapidly evolving in many, many schools, including in many schools. I have no doubt that those kind of reforms were needed and are working. We always want to make sure we have orderly classrooms. So that's a balance point that's absolutely necessary so our teachers can teach so everyone benefits. But I think the path we're on now is the best way to achieve that in a way that also makes sure our kids have a bright future, not a future hindered by some of the mistakes of the past. Please.
Yesterday, I spoke to Senator John Liu, who said that there's holding a hearing in the New York City Education Committee over the SHSAT bill, at least on the Senate side. It's not an immediate priority. That's after in December he said that it's definitely something they'll talk about. So do you, I mean, it sounds like he's making it sound like senators don't really have the appetite right now to talk about the SHSAT because they have other things to deal with. I mean, do you know, has your office been talking to lawmakers about this? Like, what's your sense about this issue coming up this session and even a bill being considered?
So right now, the entire focus is on achieving an extension of mayoral control of education by the time of the budget. That's what we're focused on right now. There'll be other opportunities in the legislative session thereafter up through the end of June to talk about other issues. Look, when I presented with a number of leaders in Albany the idea of reforming our approach to the specialized high schools, we knew it would go through a very thorough legislative process. And ultimately, it is the decision of the legislators. So they get to decide how and when it gets entertained. But from my point of view, it's not something we're going to be focusing on until we get through this immediate issue. Yes?
Just to follow up on what I asked before, what are you hearing from the legislative leaders when you speak to them? Is there any reason to think that you won't get an extension of the mayoral control?
First of all, I don't take lightly such an important issue, really. I mean, we don't take anything for granted. I think it's part of respecting the legislature that we go there, make the case, hear the concerns, try to address the concerns. I am encouraged by the conversations I've had. And we've been constantly, I've been, but also the chancellor and lots of members of our team are talking to members every single day in the Assembly and Senate. I'm encouraged by what I'm hearing. I do think there's a gathering consensus around the idea of a 3-year extension. But there's still details to work out. There's still real concerns about making sure parent voices are heard. And, you know, we're going to take that very seriously until the day the vote is done. Anything else on, please?
With this issue of mayoral control and also the issue you spoke about earlier of congestion pricing and funding for the subway, you've talked about the urgency and how this all has to get done in the next few weeks. And yet this weekend you're going to South Carolina, you were recently in Iowa. What that suggests, I mean, what I mean to ask is, why aren't you committing to stay in New York to focus on these issues intensely over the next 3 weeks until that's all resolved?
So I appreciate the question, and it's important for you to know that tomorrow I will be in Albany having these conversations again. But I want you to know, Willie, these are conversations that have been going on intensely for weeks and weeks, not just with the legislative leaders, but with a number of members in both the Senate and the Assembly. I'm having the conversations constantly. The chancellor, the deputy chancellors, all of our team at our Albany office. This is a nonstop dialogue. So I believe all of the conversations that need to happen are happening. And there is a supreme priority to get this done. We're applying all of the time and energy and resources we need. Okay, last call, education or mayoral control. Going once. Twice. Okay, let's take a little break so these good people can go and do other good things. Thank you, everyone. Well done. All right, let's get lined up. Line it up. We good? Okay, let's just keep it in the lobby. Let's have folks go around, just keep people, bring it down. Okay. All right, other topics, yes.
Continue on, I guess, Willie's vein of questioning. A new Marist poll shows that only 25% of New Yorkers say they'd be satisfied with you as the Democratic presidential nominee, and a whopping 65% said they would be unhappy with you as the Democratic nominee. You're trying to run for president. People who know you best don't want you to be the nominee of the party you
Again, I have not ruled anything out, and I will tell you what I believe about polling, because I've experienced so many times. I have perennially been an underdog in any race I've been in. It does not matter where you start, it matters where you end. That's the bottom line.
But the question is not so much, do they know you, do they not know you? It's would they be happy with you as the president?
Again, that's all I have to say about it. I've been through so many instances where the polling at the beginning of a process is very different from what you see at the end. Yes?
Mayor, I'm with Patch.com. Last week, one of my colleagues was kicked out of a meeting of the Neighborhood Advisory Committee for the new jail in Queens. Even though members of the committee, people who attended, said that they wanted her to be there, they want the press in these meetings. I'm wondering why you all have kept these meetings closed to the reporters who are covering the projects most closely, and who made that decision to keep them.
I don't know who made that decision. I want to be clear. One, we respect open meeting laws, and we want to always ensure those laws are followed and the media is invited in any circumstance where it's appropriate. Look, there is still a place in this world for private conversation when people are trying to work through sensitive matters. But we should always err on the side of inclusion, particularly when the law indicates, obviously. So we're going to fix that situation and make sure there are meetings in communities where media have the access to hear how the dialogue goes.
Maybe these future advisory committee meetings?
I don't know the nuances of each process, but the point is, I know it's a really an issue of tremendous concern. There need to be such forums where the media can watch the interaction between members of the administration and community members talking through this issue. We're going to fix that. Yeah.
Any plans to call a special election for Giovanni?
Last I heard, which was about an hour ago, he had still not formally resigned, which is the trigger. When he formally resigns the city council, then the clock starts for us to announce a date. But we're not going to do that until the legal, the legal starting point is achieved. Hold on a sec.
For your trip to South Carolina, what do you think the Democrats there want to hear from you right now?
Look, I think Democrats everywhere want to hear a response to what people are going through. The lives of people in every state have gotten harder and harder in so many ways. People are struggling to make ends meet. Families are struggling. People don't have enough time with their family. And they see the growing wealth and power in the hands of the 1%, and it doesn't make sense to them. And they want to hear how we can change that. And I also can say, and this was true in Iowa for sure, people want to hear about solutions. I get that a lot of the dialogue is focused on conflict, but actually every day people want to hear about solutions. And I want to talk about the things we're doing here that work, because I think they can work in a lot of other places. Yeah?
You mentioned you're going to Albany tomorrow.
Yep.
What is your agenda there? Who are you meeting with? What do you hope to
I don't have the list of everyone we're meeting with. We're putting it together as we speak. I certainly look forward to meeting with the legislative leaders, the governor, if he's available. It's just typically what we do every time is to see some combination of the legislative leaders and the governor, depending on people's schedules. But I'll also be talking to a number of individual members. And I'm going to be focused on two things in particular: mayoral control education and passing the plan to fix the MTA. Those are the two most urgent matters. There's a whole bunch of other matters that are important. Obviously, we want to get some of those cuts in the budget directed to the city restored. I think there's a lot of support in the legislature for stopping some of those cuts. I also think what we're trying to discern is which matters are going to be acted on in the budget versus the things that will go over into the rest of the legislative session. But right now, I think it's crucial to get mayoral control done in the budget, get the MTA plan done in the budget, and get some of those cuts, hopefully a lot of those cuts, rolled back.
Just a quick follow-up. Any thoughts on the debris that's been falling on the 7 train country.
Sure.
You've seen the images.
Yeah, it's totally unacceptable. It's totally unacceptable, and we've communicated, my team's communicated to the MTA, we expect to see a solution immediately. But this is, I think, another example of why a clearer accountability structure to the MTA. We just spent a good time talking about the power of accountability. It still doesn't exist in the murkiness of the MTA structure. The people know more and more that the state and the governor run the MTA, but I think that should be formalized further. I think that line of authority should be much clearer. I think the governor can make a lot of changes in that context of a clearer governance system, and the MTA needs the resources to not be living hand to mouth, but to actually fix the underlying problems. Yes?
I'm sorry I missed your comments earlier about congestion pricing. So
Sure.
After subway rides, obviously about the MTA.
Yeah.
Where are you as far as that goes, and the new text campaign that the Writers Alliance is out with, urging state lawmakers to act on?
Well, I'm 100% in favor of what the Writers Alliance is doing to create urgency and focus and to get this vote done by April 1st. I have said repeatedly, this is our last best chance. We have got to get this done now. There's tremendous urgency among the people. I have taken several rides with the media present to hear what people are saying. I'm going to be doing more of it, and it's really clear. The urgency is overwhelming. New Yorkers want a solution, and they want it now. And as I've talked to people about the plan the governor and I put forward, there's a strong agreement with it. And I'm confident that this is the right plan, and I think there's growing momentum to get it passed in Albany. That's absolutely what I'm hearing from writers, but it's also what I'm hearing from my constituents in general.
Speaking of the subways and of mayoral control, Speaker Johnson put out this plan a couple of days ago for the city to take control of the city's transit system. We talked a lot about the urgency of getting a funding plan done before April 1, but looking in the long term, is that something that you think you would support? Do you think that's a good solution?
First of all, I respect Speaker Johnson a lot, and I think he's putting forward a heartfelt plan, a serious plan. I think it's a very thoughtful approach. But I've said that we've got to solve the problem right now, and our best chance of solving the problem is to deal with the structure we have right this moment. A new structure inevitably would mean years of transition. We've got to get things fixed right now. So within the current MTA structure, let's fix what we have, let's reform it, let's clarify the leadership of the governor and the state, let's provide the resources. That's where my focus is, and I want that plan to be passed, and I want it to work. But I've also said, look, if for some reason it's passed and we find it doesn't work, that makes an even stronger case for the option of looking at city control. But right now, the best option is to fix it with what we have. Hold on, getting around.
Going beyond fixing what we have and getting the funding situation sorted out, is it something that you support? Do you think it's a good idea?
Again, I support the plan Governor Cuomo and I put forward. That is the best way to solve the problem. I want that plan to work. If that plan works, then we've solved the problem. I think the option put forward by the Speaker, again, it's a thoughtful, commendable plan, but my focus is on fixing it with the plan we have now. Go ahead.
Senator Liz Krueger was quoted today offering skepticism about the deal that you struck with the governor. She said there are still many unanswered questions, and the numbers don't necessarily add right up. What do you make of that? That there's still this giant hole, even with
It's a proposal that covered a lot of important ground, but also recognized that the legislators get to make the final decision and get to work out the details. So there's never been a moment where the governor and I said every final detail was in the proposal we put forward. We gave a framework. The legislators are raising a lot of important issues, but there is the time and the wherewithal and the focus to address those issues. Yes?
Also on the national scene, Congresswoman Omar's comments,
Yeah.
did you find them to be anti-Semitic?
I did. Let me be really clear. Suggesting that support for Israel means you're beholden to a foreign power is absolutely unacceptable. And it's illogical, too. I believe strongly in the state of Israel. I don't feel beholden one bit to a foreign power. I'm a proud American who believes in the state of Israel and believes it must exist. I happen to be Italian American. I've never heard anyone suggest that because of my pride in my ancestral homeland, I'm beholden to a foreign government. It's a really inappropriate comment. And unfortunately, it aligns with a history for centuries of that kind of negative comment being thrown at the Jewish community specifically There's a long anti-Semitic tradition associated with that kind of comment. I will remind you, just a quick history lesson, when John F. Kennedy was candidate for President of the United States, the first Catholic actually on the verge of becoming president, there was a rampant discussion in this country whether he would be beholden to the Pope. It was anti-Catholic, it was inappropriate, it was offensive, and our country learned from that episode. We have to learn from this episode. But what I hope is, because the Representative Omar has said at times that she doesn't mean to offend. Well, if she doesn't mean to offend, she should sit down with Jewish communities and hear the pain that they experience, hear what has been done to them over not just decades, but centuries, and recognize that we need to fight anti-Semitism with the same energy we fight sexism or racism or Islamophobia or anti-LGBT bias. It all goes together. Anything else? Last call. Go on, Rich.
Mr. Mayor, your apparent satisfaction with the 3-year renewal, at least that's what I'm taking from what you're saying. Do you think that that would help the legislature hold a future mayor's feet to the fire? In other words, something else to hold over his head? Or do you think like a permanent renewal will just simply take away another toy they have to kind of fool around and be apple knockers?
Look, again, I want to believe at some point there will be a consensus in this state that this system works so well we should make it permanent. And by the way, I think it should be the norm all over the state, all over the country. I think it's, we're the biggest school system in the country and we're proving this is a better model. But for now, I am satisfied with 3 years. It will allow us to get done the work we need to get done. And I think it's true that people are in the legislature are looking ahead, wondering who the next mayor is going to be, fair consideration, and the 3 years aligns to that concern as well. Okay, last call, going once, twice. Thank you, everyone.